They built cities that modern engineers still cannot fully explain. They developed writing systems, agricultural networks, and trade routes that spanned entire continents. And then they disappeared. No war, no plague, no clear explanation, just silence. These are not legends, these are not myths. These are real civilizations built by real people that vanished from the face of the earth, leaving behind only ruins and questions we still cannot answer. This is Verdika, and today we investigate 5 of the most disturbing disappearances in human history. Before we begin, I want you to understand something. History is not a complete story. It is a collection of fragments, broken pieces of a puzzle that we have been trying to assemble for centuries. And in the spaces between those fragments, entire worlds have been lost. The 5 civilizations you're about to hear were not primitive. They were not weak. They were sophisticated, powerful, and in many cases, more advanced than anything that came after them. So the question is not just what happened to them. The question is, could it happen again? We begin in the jungles of Central America. At its peak, the Maya civilization was home to over 20 million people. They built towering pyramids without the use of metal tools or the wheel. They developed one of the most sophisticated calendar systems in human history. A calendar so accurate that it rivals our modern calculations. They understood astronomy at a level that should not have been possible for their time. They mapped the movements of Venus with near-perfect precision. They predicted solar eclipses centuries before they occurred. And yet, between the years 800 and 1000 AD, something went catastrophically wrong. City after city was abandoned. Populations that had thrived for over 1,000 years simply stopped. The jungle reclaimed their temples. Their streets fell silent. At its height, the city of Tikal alone housed over 100,000 people. By 900 AD, it was empty. Historians have proposed many explanations: prolonged drought, internal warfare, political collapse, agricultural failure. But here's what makes this deeply unsettling. None of these explanations fully account for the speed of the collapse. Cities that had survived for centuries did not gradually decline. They were abandoned within decades. And in many sites, archaeologists have found something disturbing: evidence of sudden departure, tools left mid-use, meals left unfinished, as if the people simply stood up one day and walked away. The Maya did not disappear entirely. Their descendants still live in Central America today. But the civilization, the cities, the knowledge, the power was gone. And we still do not fully understand why. Our second civilization takes us to the island of Crete, into a mystery that involves one of the most violent events in recorded geological history. The Minoans were Europe's first advanced civilization. They existed over 3,500 years ago, long before ancient Greece, long before Rome. They built elaborate palace complexes with indoor plumbing, multi-story architecture, and sophisticated drainage systems that would not reappear in Europe for over 1,000 years. Their art was extraordinary: vibrant frescoes depicting dolphins, athletes, and elaborate religious ceremonies. A culture that, by all evidence, was remarkably peaceful. Their cities show almost no signs of military fortification. And then around 1450 BC, they were gone. For decades, the leading theory was a massive volcanic eruption on the nearby island of Thera, modern-day Santorini. The eruption, one of the largest in human history, would have triggered enormous tsunamis that devastated Crete's coastline. But here is where the mystery deepens. Archaeological evidence suggests the Minoans survived the initial eruption. Their civilization continued for decades afterward, damaged but alive. So what finally ended them? Some researchers point to invasion, the Mycenaeans from mainland Greece, who eventually took control of Crete. Others suggest a second wave of environmental disasters. And a small but persistent group of historians has noted something that keeps being overlooked. Several Minoan palace sites show evidence of deliberate destruction, burning, demolition. That does not match the pattern of natural disaster. Someone destroyed what the volcano did not. Who and why? We do not know. The Minoan writing system, known as Linear A, has never been deciphered. Whatever records they kept, whatever story they tried to tell, remains locked in a language no living human can read. They left us their art. They left us their ruins. They left us their silence. And they took their secrets with them. If the Maya and the Minoans disturb you, what I am about to tell you should genuinely unsettle you. Because this next civilization was, in many ways, the most advanced of the ancient world. And almost no one talks about it. The Indus Valley Civilization, also known as the Harappan Civilization, existed in what is now Pakistan and northwestern India. At its peak, around 2500 BC, it was home to over 5 million people, making it the largest civilization on Earth at the time. Larger than ancient Egypt, larger than Mesopotamia. And yet, most people have never heard of it. The cities of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa were masterpieces of urban planning. Streets laid out in precise grids. Buildings constructed with standardized bricks. Bricks that were exactly the same size across hundreds of miles of territory. They had indoor toilets. They had public baths. They had a sewage system so sophisticated that ancient Rome, built 2,000 years later, was the next civilization to achieve anything comparable. They had a writing system. And like the Minoans, it has never been deciphered. Trade networks stretched from Central Asia to Mesopotamia. Indus Valley weights and measures have been found in ancient Iraq. And then, around 1900 BC, it began to collapse. Within 200 years, it was gone. The early theory was invasion, the arrival of the Indo-Aryan peoples from Central Asia. But more recent archaeological evidence has complicated this picture dramatically. There are no mass graves, no evidence of widespread warfare, no burning, no destruction. The people of the Indus Valley did not appear to have been conquered. They appear to have simply left. Climate data suggests a prolonged shift in monsoon patterns. Rivers that the civilization depended on began to change course or dry up. Without water, agriculture failed. Without agriculture, cities emptied. But researchers have noted something deeply puzzling. The Indus Valley civilization left no monuments to its rulers, no temples dedicated to gods of war, no records of kings or conquests. We do not know what they called themselves. We do not know what they believed. We do not know what language they spoke. 5 million people. And we cannot tell their story because they never told it to us. Most people believe that before European contact, North America was a land of small, scattered tribal communities. That belief is wrong. At its peak around 1100 AD, Cahokia was the largest city north of Mexico. Located near what is now St. Louis, Missouri, it was home to between 10 and 20,000 people. For perspective, that made it larger than London at the same time. The people of Cahokia built enormous earthen mounds, over 120 of them. The largest, known today as Monk's Mound, covers more ground at its base than the Great Pyramid of Giza. They were sophisticated traders. Cahokian artifacts have been found as far away as the Great Lakes and the Gulf of Mexico. They had a complex religious and political hierarchy. They built a massive circle of wooden posts, sometimes called woodhenge, that functioned as an astronomical calendar. This was not a primitive culture. This was a city. And then, between 1300 and 1400 AD, Cahokia was abandoned. The population dispersed. The city emptied. Within a generation, and it was gone. Theories include climate change, environmental degradation, political instability, and disease. But what haunts researchers most is this. When European explorers arrived in the region centuries later, the Native American peoples living nearby had no clear memory of Cahokia, a city of 20,000 people, and the memory of it had been almost completely erased. How does a civilization that large simply vanish from cultural memory? We do not know. And the descendants of Cahokia's people, if they exist, cannot tell us. Our final civilization is perhaps the most astonishing, because the evidence of their existence is hiding in plain sight. You have almost certainly seen photographs of Petra, the rose-red city carved directly into the cliffs of southern Jordan. Massive facades cut into solid rock, temples, tombs, and treasuries here that seem to emerge from the earth itself. Petra was built by the Nabataeans, and the Nabataeans were, without question, one of the most remarkable civilizations in human history. They appeared in historical records around the 4th century BC, a nomadic Arab people who transformed themselves into a sophisticated trading empire. Their territory stretched from the Arabian Peninsula to the Mediterranean. They controlled the spice trade. They controlled the incense trade. Every luxury good moving between Arabia, Egypt, and Rome passed through Nabataean hands. And they had a secret. In one of the most arid environments on Earth, they had solved the problem of water. The Nabataeans built an elaborate system of dams, cisterns, and channels that captured rainwater and stored it in hidden underground reservoirs. In a desert where rainfall was measured in inches per year, they created a water supply that could sustain tens of thousands of people. Their engineering was so precise, so sophisticated, that modern archaeologists studying their water systems have described them as nothing short of genius. And then, in 106 AD, Rome annexed their territory. The Nabataean kingdom became the Roman province of Arabia, but the Nabataean people did not disappear immediately. They continued to exist under Roman rule for several more centuries, and then gradually they did disappear. Their language was absorbed into Aramaic. Their culture was absorbed into the surrounding Arab world. Their knowledge of water management, one of the most sophisticated in human history, was lost. Today, the descendants of the Nabataeans almost certainly walk among us, but they do not know it. Their identity and their history, or their legacy, was erased so completely that the people who carry their blood have no idea who their ancestors truly were. Of all the civilizations on this list, I find the Nabataeans the most haunting, not because they were destroyed, but because they were forgotten. 5 civilizations, 5 disappearances. 5 sets of questions that history has never fully answered. The Maya, the Minoans, the Indus Valley, Cahokia, the Nabataeans. What do they have in common? They were powerful, they were sophisticated, they had survived for centuries, and they were gone.